According to Cloud, he became friends with Sephiroth when he was in Soldier. It's weird to see Cloud act like a child when compared to now. Well, thanks for keeping an open mind, I guess. What's up guys, welcome back to the Console Warrior. In the last part, we covered the history of the Final Fantasy series, explored the gameplay and mechanics of Final Fantasy VII, and talked about Part 1's story and the player's involvement. And if you haven't checked that video yet, Part 1 is in the description. I bet if you haven't watched it, you probably want to check that out because there's a lot of information that hasn't really been explained unless you watch that video. It's really annoying when someone asks questions or make criticism that could easily be explained by watching Part 1. Tino, why are you sans? I told you to pick something that makes you stand out. Oh my goodness. So like I said in the last part, if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII yet, go play it before watching this video. Or better yet, play the remake. This is not the type of game you want spoiled. And again, this review will be critiqued from my personal experience as fresh as possible. So please, keep an open mind. This is not the last part of this review. Before writing the script for this video, the last time I played this game was when I found Cloud after he went missing. I realized I wasn't going to finish the game before the remake's release, so I decided I should stop playing there and make this critique into parts. Luckily, I wrote summaries of my experiences, so I had reminders to go back on. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because I'm not entirely sure how this will affect my experience. It's very easy for me to forget. Now, before returning with the story, I want to talk more about the gameplay. In the first part, I've only mentioned some of the combat mechanics, but I've learned that there's more that the game offers. You see how some slots look like they're chained together? That's because you can link materia with each other. I've noticed this before, but I didn't think much of it. Sometimes I've seen one of my characters use magic on all enemies on a side. That's because I have the all materia, which can link with something like lightning. If you add the element materia with something like ice, it can add an effect to the character's weapon, like give Cloud an ice sword. You can even choose what positions where each character is placed. The front makes the character stronger, but the back makes them more defensive. However, the damage for magic and long-range attacks will always be the same no matter where they're positioned. I just find it amazing how complex the combat actually is. You don't need to use it in the first part, and the fact that I learned this later in the game just adds more variety and freshness to the gameplay. In the last part, I said that a third type of equipment wasn't important enough for me to mention, but I found a reason to bring it up here. Unlike weapons or armor which improve your stats and give you slots for materia, bracelets give you extra effects. Sometimes it can give you extra strength or resistance to poison. Rarely do I need to use these, but when an enemy or boss is too tough, that's when I consider choosing them. The game is getting a lot harder. It eases you in, but it's definitely noticeable that learning this stuff is necessary. However, it's still flexible enough for the player to choose how they want to strategize, so it doesn't feel like you are forced to use specific sets to continue. Telling the player this information all at once would have been boring, especially for someone with a short attention span like myself. So I'm happy that the game told me the basics first so I can get a grasp on it before getting to the complicated stuff. Just like the last video, let's talk about each character again. According to Sephiroth, Cloud's memories might be fake. In a picture that was taken before Cloud's hometown was destroyed, a stranger was there instead of Cloud. It looked like a character named Zack. I've heard of Zack before, another spoiler if you will. All I know is that he gave Cloud his busted sword, but he also gave something else. I just don't remember what it was. It was mentioned earlier that he joined Soldier 2, but he never came back home. I was wondering if he was in this game at all, and it surprised me that he was Aeris' ex. When Cloud was taking her out like they promised, Aeris mentioned how similar he was to Zack. Being compared with an ex is not something I want to hear on a date, but it is weird nonetheless. It's revealed that Cloud is a failed clone of Sephiroth, which is why he doesn't have a tattoo like the others. Yet he was the only one who actually completed the mission, which infuriated Hojo. The weird thing is, Cloud begged Hojo for a number, almost like he was brainwashed. Cloud handed over the black materia to the frozen Sephiroth, which unleashed the beast's weapon to cause havoc. That is to say, I was definitely invested in how this goes. Last time we learned that Barrett's hometown hated him because he trusted the Shinra, who burnt down his town and killed his loved ones. His backstory felt iffy to me, and that was because of his old friend dying. I feel really bad for Barrett, and I'm sure that's what the writers wanted you to believe. but I do think dying is kind of dumb. Honestly, how I explained it, why I thought he was dumb, was a bit unreasonable. Not everyone can handle a situation the same way. I just find Dying's edginess a bit too ridiculous, especially when compared to Cloud. But I do think Barrett is really cool, and not as much of a meathead as the story wants you to believe. Barrett himself believes that he's not capable of being leader as he thought he was, and although I'm happy to see him notice his flaws, I wouldn't go as far as saying he would be bad at it. He formed a team by himself and was the one to put Cloud on his feet when he said he was too scared to find out the truth of who he actually was. He might be rash and gullible enough to trust the Shinra, but like Tifa said, everyone was tricked by them. Claiming that he's pretty much an idiot when everyone else has done the same thing is stupid. I guess it's just Barrett being tough on himself again, but don't worry buddy, I believe in you. With a huge help from Sid, they stopped Barrett's hometown from being destroyed again, and the townsfolk realized Barrett's heroism and forgave him. Maybe it was too easy or just happened too fast, but something about it just feels undeserved. I mean, Sid did do most of Barrett's work. Barrett even made a big deal that he didn't want his friends to get involved in part 1, and yet he barely did anything here. The fact it was done halfway in the game just makes it feel unimportant. I think it would have been better if they forgave Barrett after they saved everyone for Sephiroth, then it would feel more deserving to me. But playing Final Fantasy VII this far, I wouldn't be surprised if the stakes were just too high that the writers really had no choice. Cait Sith is an interesting character, but he didn't seem that bright. Some of his choices seemed to cause harm for the team. Since he was a spy, I wondered if he sabotaged them on purpose, but he does say he values their friendship. It was hard to tell if he should be trusted after blowing his cover. Even if he did sacrifice his toy body, it wasn't his real body in the first place. After Cloud activated Meteor, Rufus, the president of Shinra, rescued Barrett and Tifa. He was trying to stop Meteor, but after Barrett was starting to respect him, Rufus revealed he was going to execute them. They were taken in front of a small audience so the civilians can have someone to blame. Luckily, Cait Sith was in the audience to help them escape. This surprised me and I was starting to respect his character, but apparently he went the wrong way, so he really was an idiot. Okay, well it turns out he did go the right way. It's just things aren't going the way that they expected. But they escaped? I thought this was really cool, with one major issue, but it made me appreciate him. But who's the real Cait Sith? Well, his name is actually Reeve. I think I've heard of his name before, but I don't remember much about him, so I don't really care to be honest, but it was at least nice to know. And when he was arrested for trying to stop Rufus' minions, I knew he can't be trusted. Okay, let's talk about Red 13. His main purpose in the entire story so far is to introduce you to Bugenhagen. I love his character, but I feel like he's wasted potential. He does mention that since he was an experiment, and maybe he could be like those hooded creatures, so that does give me some hope. But I wish we could see him interact with the others more and get more involved in the story. My favorite Sid moment was when they stole the Highwind from the Shinra because of how much the crew members admire Sid so much. I do think it would have been much more impactful if Sid was the one who told you instead, however. You can only learn this by talking to one of the workers, but that's optional so you're likely to miss it. It's such important information I'd want to make sure the player knows this. But now I have a quick and easy way to travel the map. It's just so satisfying. It's a great reward for how much the player worked to get here. No more walking to areas without worrying about random encounters. Later they find out the Shinra is launching Sid's shuttle to destroy Meteor. Cloud wants to go up there so they can get the huge materia, which I failed to get. So naturally Sid wants to come along. The Shinra launches them without a countdown, so they have to use the escape pod. On the way there, Sid gets trapped under debris because of the oxygen tanks. Luckily Shira was on the shuttle and helped move the debris out of the way. I've mentioned before that I didn't like Shira very much. Even if she was right, her approach to helping Sid is very extreme. In the end, Sid's impatience could have gotten him killed if he didn't stop the shuttle. So it is mostly Sid's fault. But I understand how he feels. I wouldn't feel good if I let her sacrifice herself for my dreams. Also, why is she here? Since the shuttle's been launched, how would being near the oxygen tanks kill her again? Didn't they say she would have been burnt by the ignition? Where are the flames? I know this is literal rocket science, so I get it might be complicated, but it doesn't seem like she'll die if she just goes up to navigation. That may be a good point, but the player shouldn't have to think too much to understand that. Unless she's afraid of leaving electrical. Also, why do you have a knife? Darn it. And lastly, Tifa. So, I gotta be honest, I didn't really care for her in the last part. It's not like she doesn't have personality, and she's really tough. Her motivation is the same as Cloud's. Sephiroth is a big meanie. Her childhood with Cloud is what makes her interesting. I do care for her, but she didn't seem to do that much that makes her stand out. Luckily, she does get important in part 2. She's used to add mystery to Cloud's past as his memory is challenged by Sephiroth, stating that they aren't real. However, Tifa isn't making that easy to believe. Since Cloud is an experiment or clone of Sephiroth, how does Tifa have those memories? After Cloud went missing, it was up to Tifa to lead the crew and find Cloud. They found him at an island, mentally broken in a hospital. Tifa, obviously being worried, decided to stay with him until he's better. Weapon showed up and destroyed the island, making Tifa and Cloud fall into the livestream. Tifa woke up and realized she's in Cloud's subconscious. Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I'm guessing it was because of the livestream. It turns out Cloud is very insecure. He actually failed to join Soldier, and everything that Sephiroth said was true. Cloud's memories were fake. The soldier in the picture was not Cloud, but he was there. He was the Shinran soldier who got seasickness on the ride to Midgar, and he was the reason why Tifa is alive. He saw what Sephiroth did to Tifa, grabbed the Buster Sword, and yeeted him off a bridge! This is the best part out of the entire game so far. It puts every question I had about Cloud's memories all wrapped up in a nice bow. Just seeing Cloud being revealed as one of the Shinran soldiers and stopping Sephiroth just proves that Cloud continues to be a cool character. Probably one of my favorite plot twists hands down. Cloud recovered to his normal self and apologized to everyone. He lied about joining Soldier because he was ashamed that he was a failure, and he was just afraid to admit it, maybe even to himself. But Cloud is actually a loser. Relatable and cool, just how I like him. But enough praise to Cloud, because we are talking about Tifa. Tifa definitely has a reason to be in the story. Is she one of my favorites? Not really, but I do think she makes a great character, and I'm glad she's a part of this game. Oh! And before I talk about the conclusion, I found another character. Her name is Yuffie, who I recognize from Kingdom Hearts. I technically found her in part 1, but I didn't know how to recruit her yet. Apparently I missed one of the options, and I just assumed I was going to get her later. I'm actually kinda glad I didn't recruit her right away, because when I was Tifa, Yuffie said exactly what was on her minds. She's got big boobs. But what do I think of her? Well, she's really annoying. I decided to reorganize my materia at the worst time, and when I found her home village, she stole them and didn't put them back in the right order. I don't even know why she cares about joining Cloud, and the others seem to find her annoying as well. At least she seems optional on like Red 13, so I guess it's okay. I'm not denying that I don't like her so far, but I guess you can't hate this adorable face. So let's go ahead and talk about the ending of part 2. After I picked up Bugenhagen, I found a piece underwater that I wasn't sure I had to find. I don't remember being told I needed to find it. If I did, then go ahead and let me know in the comments. But I just wanted to say, I got really lucky that I found it. So I go back to the Forgotten City because the piece I found looked very similar to the pieces there. After Eris died, a bead fell off her hair. This was the Holy Materia. It has the power to get rid of all that is evil. Meteor, weapon, maybe even them. It depends on what the planet thinks. It kinda reminds me of the Ghostbusters. I'm not gonna spoil a 40-year-old movie, but if they use the Holy Materia and no one dies, I'm not gonna be happy. Cloud gets a call from Cait Sith. He tells them that the Shinra is going to use the Sister Ray, the same cannon from Junin. They move it to Midgard to use the macro energy there, so they want to go and stop them from causing harm. The Sister Ray finished off weapon and destroyed the barrier that contains Sephiroth. The overuse of macro energy presumably killed Rufus. Any more and Midgard will be destroyed too. After parachuting down, I finally get to Hojo, and he reveals that he's actually Sephiroth's father. I was a bit surprised, even if it did seem like it came out of nowhere, but he did say he put a baby in Jenova, and that to me means Sephiroth is an ancient. So why did Eris lie to me? After defeating Hojo, they returned to the Highwind, and it was finally time to go after Sephiroth for real. However, with the kindness of his heart, Cloud wants them to go home and think about if they really want to fight him. Tifa obviously stays, and we get a little scene of them snugging together. It's cute. Tifa's character arc is finally finished. She finally got his Buster Sword! Now, they make it seem like the others aren't going to come back, but you can't fool me, it's clear that they're returning. Barrett wants to save the planet because of Marlene. That's his whole reason for doing this. He got this far, why would he give up now? Cait Sith is technically already dead, If he's destroyed, then another one would surely exist, and his actual body, Reeves, is safe away from the conflict. There's no consequences for him. Red 13 wants to make his father proud, and to keep Bugenhagen safe. He wouldn't turn back like a coward like he presumed his father to be. I would hate him if he did that. These characters have clear motivations that they want to go. Now, Sid is a weird one because he only joined to get back at the Shinra, which he clearly achieved, and then some, and he's already made his dreams a reality. So... and Yuffie is Yuffie. I don't think I want to take her seriously. My point is, they make this such a big deal, but it's really pointless. They're gonna die if they don't do it, of course they're gonna help. I get Cloud wants them to rethink it, because clearly a lot of stuff has happened. I just see no reason to think they won't come back. But thinking about it is really wholesome. So my experiences with part 2 has a lot of positives and a lot of negatives. It has my favorite moment in the game so far, and unlike part 1, it doesn't have as much Deus Ex Machina. Speaking of Deus Ex Machina, there is one I wasn't a fan of in this particular scene. When Tifa was locked up in the gas chamber, a Shinran soldier just happened to drop the key, letting her escape. The soldiers might be silly, but I didn't think they were this incompetent. I was mad just how lazy this was. If I were to rewrite it, I would make the Shinran soldier Red 13 in disguise. In part 1, Cloud and the others snuck into a boat and most of the crew disguised themselves in sailor uniforms. Red was also dressed up, and as you might expect from a 4-footed mammal, he didn't look normal. If Red was a soldier who dropped the key, it would have been less about how lame the villains are, but more about how clever Kate Sith and Red are. He's pretty much the best person for this role as Kate Sith would never fit in that outfit, and Sid is too busy flying the high wind. This can also give Red more purpose, which is what I've been wanting from him. Another problem I had was that weapons design kept changing. Every time I saw it, I thought it was a complete different monster. The characters never acknowledge it too, so was there any reason for this? The ending wasn't a walk in the park either. After I re-entered Midgar, I had to go through this hall. Most of the enemies didn't even damage me. They just paralyzed my characters, so I had to defeat them quickly or be forced to wait until I move again. I went to the bottom path first, and I found a dead end, so I had to go back and try the other way. It was just a narrow path and everything looked the same, fighting these enemies that did nothing but slow me down. It was repetitive, and it was only there to waste my time. I wasn't sure which part I liked the most, but if I had to choose, part 1 would be my pick. The positives weren't as good as part 2, but there were less negatives in part 1, and the ending was overall better. However, it doesn't matter how I feel about part 2 if part 3 can wrap this all up. I mean, this is the last part of the game, right? In the last video, I said part 1 took me 20 hours. I tried to show how much time I had using my game footage, but somehow my editing software decided to make some changes without telling me. I'm pretty much 40 hours in, and as I was told, I will beat this game in about 60 hours on my first playthrough. So assuming that the next part is the same length, it will be my last video for this review. Honestly, other than a few questions, all that needs to be done is finish Sephiroth. What else does 20 hours of story do I need to know? So yeah, I have high expectations for the rest of this game. Thanks again for keeping an open mind, and once again, I ask you guys to keep doing that for a little longer. Anyways, I got a game to finish. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao! Wait, Cloud was always Tifa's hero? Oh man...